story. And it can be a story or stories of your own invention or reinvention. Creating our own mythologies is a way of defining ourselves. We have created a dramatic reading of story based on mythology as part of a novel that I recently completed. Mythology is one of the ways that societies over the eons have made sense of the world. In my story, human characteristics of jealousy, of not meeting the norms of society, encountering a trickster, and the timeless tale of regeneration and life ever after create an interesting journey. The novel I wrote is, in part, inspired by the Bible and explores the fluidity of gender. When I was researching it, I was delighted to come across this Babylonian myth with a two-spirited, intersexed male and female hero. The myth is based on the earlier myth from ancient Sumer in 4000 to 3100 BCE, where the goddess Inanna descends to the underworld and enters its 7 gates. Inanna is the more ancient counterpart to Ishtar. Ishtar was an important goddess of Babylon, which had its first dynasty 1,000 or so years later, around 2000 BCE. Babylon was in the part of the world which is now Iraq. The Ishtar Gate was the 8th gate to the inner city of Babylon. It was constructed about 575 BCE. It was excavated in the early 20th century. A reconstruction using original bricks is now shown in the Pergamon Museum, Berlin. There was a lot going on back then, including an overlap with biblical history. It is thought that Moses led the exodus of the Jews from Egypt around 1312 BCE. My narrator is Tamar, a character from the Hebrew Bible. She is telling the story to her young nephews, who are actually born intersexed or male and female. In public, they are referred to as male because their father, Judah, was told that he had sons. In those days, boys were valued more than girls, and we're still changing things. It is my pleasure to introduce the cast of characters. Narrator Janice Radway as Tamar from the Hebrew Bible. The twins, also from the Hebrew Bible. Sarah Skochko. Zarar, Annabel Grote. The gatekeeper from the myth of Ishtar. In ancient Babylon, Allen Radway. And now we present the Descent of Ishtar.
Close your eyes and imagine the long-ago city of Babylon in a land called Mesopotamia, near the mighty Tigris. A gentle wind blew. There was a beautiful goddess named Ishtar. She was also known as Queen of the Night.
What night, Auntie?
Ishtar was called the Queen of the Night because she was known as the goddess of love and, well, of love. Ishtar was the goddess of love, war, fertility, and sexuality. And she may have been a sacred prostitute, but the twins were still too young to hear about war and sex.
Well, what did the goddess look like, Auntie?
She was tall and beautiful and had wings. She had wide set eyes shaped like almonds, and a high forehead under a crown that was piled very high in ridges like a fancy temple. She held her arms up and grasped 2 loops of rope that may have also been hand mirrors. Her 2 pet owls were usually by her side.
Owls?
Ooh,
Owls?
Yes, we have a picture here. But first, I want to tell you the story of someone called Asushunamir, who was both male and female, just like you. Asushunamir was a spirit guide and a trickster who rescued the Queen of Heaven from eternal death.
Well, what's a trickster?
A trickster is someone who gets his or her own way, or his and her own way, by playing tricks on someone.
And what's eternal death?
We cease to exist eventually, but don't worry, it won't happen for a long, long time. And if you meet a spirit guide, it might not happen at all. I told myself that lying was okay if it made people feel better, especially children. Ishtar had never gone to the underworld where her evil sister Skochko lived. First, Ishtar had to ask the other gods if she could go. They ignored her, so she asked again, and then again. Finally, they said she could go. Now, the underworld had many gates. There were 7 in total. Ishtar came to the first gate and rang the bell. There was 1 ring for the first gate, and 2 for the second gate, and so on. Ishtar rang the bell and waited. She tapped her foot. Finally, the gatekeeper came.
Hello? Hello? Just watching one of my stories. Who goes there?
But he did not open the gate. Ishtar told the gatekeeper that if he didn't open the gate, she would smash it down.
Wait 1 minute, I'll go talk to the queen of the underworld. I can't do anything unless I ask her first. She tells me what to do.
Okay. The gatekeeper was old and he walked with a cane. He was used to dealing with demanding people who came down to the underworld. He decided that Ishtar was not so bad. She was beautiful and he liked looking at her.
Hard to believe you don't have a handsome, delicious, and brilliant husband.
So, the gatekeeper went to Ishtar's evil sister Skochko and told her that Ishtar was coming. Skochko was already mad at her sister for being a beautiful goddess, and now she had to deal with her sister coming down to her kingdom. Skochko told the gatekeeper that Ishtar could only enter if she agreed to obey the laws of the underworld. In death, all are equal, so the dead who came to the underworld had to leave their possessions, including clothing and jewels, behind. Since there was no food, the souls had to eat clay and dust.
Ew. I could never eat clay and dust. My favorite meal is figs and almonds, sometimes locusts and honey.
Since Ishtar agreed to obey the laws, she could visit the underworld even though she wasn't dead. To pass through the first gate, Ishtar had to take off her crown. She took off her earrings at the second gate, and her breast ornaments and her necklace at the 4th and 5th. At the 6th gate, she removed her shining silver bracelets from her arms and legs. Then, at the 7th gate, she removed her white tunic. So she was...
Naked!
You're supposed to be naked. Mama told us so. You're both right. Ishtar was naked. And after she passed through the 6th gate, her sister confronted her and asked her why she came. If you want to know what it is like to be dead, I can show you, said the evil sister. Skochko told her soldiers to torture her sister by afflicting every part of her body. But Ishtar was favored by the gods, and they were watching over her from their thrones in the sky, just like our God. He lives up in the sky. Kind of. But in this story, there are many gods and goddesses. Some of the gods decided that as long as Ishtar was in the underworld, the trees and plants would stop bearing fruit. No children or animals would be born either. All of creation would die if Ishtar stayed in the underworld much longer. The god of all things that grow and the moon god got together and made a plan.
And what happened?
Ishtar's brother was the god of water. From the dirt under his fingernails, he created Asushunamir, a spirit guide. Asushunamir was both male and female, and very beautiful. The plan was to send Asushunamir to the underworld, so that Skochko would forget all about her sister. When Asushunamir knocked on the first gate, the gatekeeper went down and told Skochko that a beautiful man was coming, just for her. Skochko's right eye drooped, her cheeks were sunken, And because she was queen of the underworld, she wore a drab dress with a large belt buckle that was a skull. Ereshkigal rarely met anyone in the underworld who wasn't already dead, so she was very excited about meeting this beautiful man. So the gatekeeper hobbled back up to the first gate.
I got the go-ahead from the boss lady. Come on down.
Just as the gods had planned, Ereshkigal forgot all about Ishtar. Ishtar started coming back up. She left the underworld and returned through the 7th gate first. Her clothes were getting back to her, so she was no longer naked. At the same time, Asushunamir entered the first gate. Just as Ishtar left the first gate and was given back her crown, Asushunamir passed through the 7th gate and was forced to give up all clothing. Ereshkigal saw that Asushunamir was a man and a woman, not just a man as she was expected. She was furious. The gods had tricked her. Ishtar came back from the dead, and the land flourished. Because of Asushunamir, Ishtar was resurrected and lived forever.
But why was Ereshkigal upset that Asushunamir was a man and woman instead of just a man, Auntie?
Because Ereshkigal liked men better, and she wanted one as a playmate.
Oh, what happened to the trickster?
I actually didn't know. The myth that I heard just ended with Ishtar coming back from the underworld. But these two children wanted to know what happened to that spirit guide who had 2 sexes just like them. I decided to make up a new ending. Ishtar had her powers restored. She was a goddess again. She blessed Asushunamir and freed her from the underworld.
Did they live together forever and ever?
Yes, they lived together forever and ever. And Asushunamir was grateful not to have to stay in the underworld with Ereshkigal.
I don't believe that story. Who ever heard of someone coming back from the dead and living forever, even if she is a goddess?